What is the Zangezur Corridor? So today I want us to talk about the Zangezur Corridor and the interest of Turkey, not just in the Caspian Sea, but the idea to resuscitate some kind of Turkic empire in the region for economic benefits, cultural integration, and so on and so forth. So let's jump into it, guys. The Zangezur Corridor. So basically, the Zangezur Corridor is a proposed land route that goes through Armenia's Sunik province, connecting mainland Azerbaijan to its enclave in Nakhchivan. If you take a look at the map, the Azerbaijan have another enclave called Nakhchivan, which is not contiguous to mainland Azerbaijan. So what they are trying to do is to break uh, Armenia, particularly the southern part of Armenia, the 40 or 44-kilometer corridor between the southern part of Armenia and northern part of Iran, to break that corridor and to connect or to create a contiguous connection between Nakhchivan and mainland Azerbaijan. So basically, Azerbaijan, is trying to connect its enclave of Nakhchivan to mainland Azerbaijan and connect it further to Turkey. Now, this idea gained traction after the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war, where the ceasefire agreement mentioned unblocking regional transport links. Because during the course of that war, Armenia stifled transportation links, basically between those two corridors. However, there's a key tension here. While Azerbaijan and Turkey refer to it as a corridor, implying a secure, possible extraterritorial route, Armenia insists on maintaining full sovereignty over its territory. So, on one hand, Azerbaijan and Turkey keep using the word corridor, meaning that they want that area to be outside the political control of Armenia. And if you take a look at the map is problematic in its sense because the Nakhchivan enclave and the mainland Azerbaijan are not connected, by land contiguously. And for Azerbaijan, the Zangezur corridor is about more than just a road. It's a strategic lifeline that connects it directly to Nakhchivan and to Turkey, allowing Baku to bypass reliance on Iran for access to its enclave. It is also lowers trade costs, and in terms of their position. And Azerbaijan, you also have to understand, have these economic relations with Turkey, and I'll talk about the Turkish interest in a second. Have these economic relations with Turkey, particularly their gas supplies going to Europe and going to Israel. Azerbaijan supply more than 40% of Israeli energy demands and so on and so forth. So for Azerbaijan, it's about reducing and lowering trade costs and also to position Azerbaijan as a central energy and transport hub in the region, strengthening its influence in the South Caucasus. Moreover, Baku sees it as a way to exert additional pressure on Armenia to recognize Azerbaijan's territorial claims, including over Nagorno-Karabakh, leveraging connectivity as a geopolitical tool. So this has a lot of narratives to it, but at the end of the day, it's about the economic lifeline that it provides to Azerbaijan, which is already a rich country because of their energy supplies to Europe, but they also want to maintain and assert geopolitical influence. And for Armenia, or from the Armenian perspective, the corridor presents both an economic opportunity and a significant security concern. On one hand, opening transport routes could help Armenia break its economic isolation and improve regional trade prospects. While on the other hand, Armenia fears that the corridor could undermine its sovereignty and security, especially given its recent military vulnerabilities and the lack of strong Western security guarantees. The government in Yerevan, which is the capital of Armenia, is cautious and insisting that any transport routes remain under Armenian customs and security control, rejecting any notion of an extraterritorial corridor within its territory. So what Turkey and Azerbaijan are demanding for is some sort of extraterritorial powers that they will not have anything like custom check, they will not be paying any dues in order to transport, whether it's energy or transport goods through and through Armenian territory. So at the end of the day, since Armenia is refusing to accept some sort of external control of their land, the Turks and Azerbaijan have waged war on Armenia several times. And from Turkey's perspective, the Zangezur corridor aligns perfectly with its broader geopolitical ambition. Turkey envisions a Turkic world connected from Anatolia through the Caucasus to Central Asia. Now, this corridor would give Turkey direct land access to Azerbaijan and to the Caspian region, facilitating trade routes and energy corridors that bypass both Iran and Russia. It supports Turkey's Middle Corridor initiative aiming to link Turkey to China via Central Asia, while simultaneously reducing Russian and Iranian leverage in the South Caucasus by backing the corridor. Turkey strengthens the strategic depth in the region, aligns closely with Azerbaijan, and positions itself as a pivotal energy and transport hub between Europe and Central Asia. You guys need to understand that a lot of the people in the South Caucasus, or what they call the South Caucasus, Turkic people, whether even in some parts of Russia like Dagestan, Chechnya, Abkhazia, South Ossetia, Georgia as well, which is another country. And if you go to Central Asia, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, these countries are Turkic countries. So what Turkey is trying to do is to create a contiguous entity from mainland Anatolia, connecting through the corridor of Nakhchivan, that goes through the Zangezur Corridor that they are trying to create, through Armenian territory as it stands right now, through the northern part of Iran, connects to mainland Azerbaijan, direct access to the Caspian Sea, and also by land, they can connect to Central Asia, and connect all those Turkic countries. So to them, it's about cultural connection, it's another trade route, and it's about economic connections. Because if they need to reach out to Central Asian countries, they have to either go through Georgia, or they go through Russia, or they have to go through Iran, and they want to break this dependence on these countries and be a regional power. Meanwhile, Russia and Iran have their reservations. Russia wants the transport routes unblocked, but under its peacekeeping oversight to maintain influence in the region. Iran completely opposed the corridor, fearing it to lose its transit relevance and be cut off from the Caucasus, while also being a way of growing Turkish and Azerbaijan influence in its northern borders, particularly in the region of East Azerbaijan. We saw that recently with the current war waged by Israel on Iran, and the fact that Azerbaijan was used as a corridor to target Iran. And Iran is worried, it's very worried that if Azerbaijan gains a lot of influence in the region, it is going to use that power and leverage to provide, base for outside actors to continue to target Iran and weaken Iran. Iran is a land bridge between South Asia, Central Asia, and East Asia. So if they create this corridor through the Caspian Sea, it will reduce the reliance on Iran, particularly with the recent One Belt, One Road initiative by the Chinese President Xi Jinping that have been in place since 2012 or 2013, since he came to power. So in essence, the Zangezur Corridor is not just a transport project, it's a geopolitical fault line that intersects the interests of Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkey, Iran, and Russia. And for Azerbaijan and Turkey, it represents connectivity and regional dominance. For Armenia, it is a dilemma between economic benefits and essential security concern. And for Iran and Russia, it signals a potential shift in regional influence that could redefine power balances in the South Caucasus. Understanding this corridor is essential to grasping the complex geopolitical chessboard that is emerging in the region today. And this is not the first time. The Russians have also been dealing with this for a very long time, including the war between Russia and Georgia, the war in Chechnya and Dagestan. So it's about the attempt by Turkey and also outside powers to control the South Caucasus or the South Caucasus, because it is very important to not just the energy supplies going to Europe, but also for important trade routes. And this is why you see that Armenia and Azerbaijan have gone to many wars, including the fight over Nagorno-Karabakh and other issues that we can discuss. Leave a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.